Good afternoon, and thank you so much for watching this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin. I am Amber Miller, your host, and of course, before we get to today's show, just a couple updates. So please make sure to check out the AARP Wisconsin website for information on upcoming events, advocacy, volunteer opportunities. It really is a one-stop shop if you're interested in what we are doing for AARP and the state of Wisconsin. So please check out aarp.org/WI. Also, please remember Community Connections, which is an initiative that started about 2 years ago. It is free and you can be any age. You do not need to be an AARP member. If you were to go to this website, it does a couple different things. One is it gives you volunteer opportunities within your local neighborhood, but also gives you an opportunity to create your own volunteer opportunities. So let's say you want to do like a neighborhood cleanup or neighborhood shoveling, you could put together a small group. And then also on that website is the AARP Community Connections. This is also free and open to any age. And what you could do is put a request in for you or your loved one to receive a phone call from one of our trained AARP volunteers. Because as we know, sometimes it is just really nice to hear a friendly voice on the other end. So you could find additional information about either of those at the aarpcommunityconnections.org or by calling 1-888-281-0145. And even though we are in a more virtual world right now, we're always looking for great volunteers to join the AARP Wisconsin family. So if you're interested in volunteering with us, you can go to the website below, which is aarp.org/I want, and then the number 2, volunteer. So I want to volunteer to learn more about volunteer opportunities in your area. And also, if you would like to apply for a volunteer position, all that information can be found at the website below or by going to the AARP Wisconsin website. So if you tuned into last week's show, we're going to stay on the theme of kind of like work and jobs. And last week you heard from 2 of our associates out of the national office. They were talking about the survey results for employer attitude towards credentials as proof of soft skills. And what we found out is that employers really do prefer soft skills, especially for the 50 plus population. And then also women work and the road to resilience, working women at the midlife and beyond. So we learned a little bit about the 50 plus women population, not only just working full time and struggles that they find, especially during COVID, but also as a possible caregiver. So maybe they are helping their grandchildren or a spouse or parents and how that plays out. So we're excited today that we're going to be having Annette DiZinno, and she is the lead Workforce Connection Center consultant for Goodwill Center for Work and Training. This is out of Milwaukee, but if you are outside of the Milwaukee area, we're going to talk about how you can find what Goodwill does in your area. So we're going to be talking a little bit about job searching basics. And this is a really great way if one of your New Year's resolutions was like, if I'm unemployed, underemployed, this is going to be my year to maybe find a new career path. So Annette, we'd love to see your beautiful face. Hello, Annette.
Hi, Amber.
Thank you so much for being on today's show. We appreciate it. I look up to Goodwill Industries of Southeast Wisconsin in general, just because you guys do so much. So we appreciate you being here today.
Thanks. I look to AARP for lots of great information as well. So.
And if you are watching this show live, we will be taking questions throughout the show. So you can post them below if you're on Facebook or YouTube. And then also if you are on our Facebook, just as a friendly reminder that we do have a YouTube channel. We'd love for you to like and subscribe it, and then you can watch some past shows. So Annette, what are the first steps in getting ready for a job search?
Well, Amber, so you mentioned Goodwill Center for Work and Training. I'm just going to direct people to Goodwill SEW, which stands for Southeast Wisconsin. We are not a knitting facility, but goodwillsew.com. And there you will see just at the very top of the tab that it says, job seeker. And you will see just listed right underneath that, the first mention will be job staffing placement. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I call them my sister department, which is Goodwill Talent Bridge.
Okay.
Goodwill Talent Bridge is a full service staffing and recruiting firm, and they specialize in administrative and warehouse and professional placement. So since they're another department, side by side with the Goodwill Workforce Connection Center, and that is the department I work in, we work collaboratively to help people with their job search. So just a nod for sure to Goodwill Talent Bridge, yeah, because they do a lot of placement for employers. Then the Workforce Connection Center we are a free resource for any job seeker 16 years and older. And thank you for shopping at Goodwill, because that pays for these services that we can offer to the community. So what we do in the centers is, I think a lot of job seekers don't really know where to start, and they really need some help and direction. And so utilizing a place like the Workforce Connection Centers would be a good start. And what we offer. So if we maybe go to the next slide, I like to call it getting our ducks in a row.
Yes, and that's a great picture for it.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a warm and fuzzy image. And I think job search is a little heart stopping for many people. And so I think if you can just think about it as just getting kind of ready and putting things together, then you're prepared to really make the search successful. And I equate it to those ducks in a row, like a car trip, if you're a road trip, a fun road trip. But without gas in the car, without a decent map, without beverage and snack of your choice, in my case, Ruffles, it is not going to be a pleasant trip. So you have to kind of line things up and be ready to go.
And Annette, so getting your ducks in a row, and you kind of gave us some good examples, but what documents do you need to get ready for job search?
If you look at this list, let's talk about the resume, which is, I would call that the primary tool, probably the gas in the tank. And the good news and bad news is there's a lot of information about resume. That's great. But again, most people feel as if they could use a little bit of guidance on how to put that together. And I know you mentioned, Amber, transferable skills. So for job seekers, especially more mature job seekers, we've been around the block a little bit. How do you kind of get that all together when you're thinking about being most current, which would be, let's say, the last 10 to 15 years? Well, you need some kind of formatting then and help to consolidate and best showcase that information in your resume, which is one of the things we can do with the Workforce Connection Center. And then, that would lead to an interview, which I'm going to say also, interview practice is something all of us can use, especially if it's in a virtual setting, which most of it will be today, or a phone. So that's something to kind of prepare and think about. And another thing at the center we do in terms of a connection is we have employers who are looking for candidates and they are hiring. And so if you take advantage of utilizing our service or others, we connect you to a human. I think that's a part that seems to be missing in this whole equation of that checklist, of the items on that list. So a resume would be the first step. Some companies will ask for a cover letter. If they do, I would provide it. Some of the minutia, this names, addresses, phone, email, and so just have that information ready, because if you're making up a resume, which bleeds into your application. You just need some of that detail. Um, the phone numbers, the emails, all that doesn't go on your resume, but you want to make sure you have that ready for the references. And I want to talk about voicemail and email because I think those are things that people wouldn't think about, but they certainly play into this whole job search process. If your voicemail doesn't accept calls, that's not a good thing. I mean, the expectation is if I call you, I can leave a message. Ideally, that message should be in your voice, raspy as it may be, but because then people kind of know it's you. If I get a generic greeting, recruiters through the course of the day could be ding, 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 calling a lot of people. And when I get a generic greeting, my first thought is, I hope it's Amber.
Yep.
And especially like Amber Miller, somewhat of a common name.
Correct.
So I think it's advisable to have it in, and it gives you a little flavor of who you are. So have your voicemail set up, check your voicemail.
Yes.
And then another little tip maybe is if you're in job search with probably more than one place that you're looking and you get a call, you don't recognize the number, let it go to voicemail. Because if you're shopping for socks at Kohl's and you get a call, that could throw you off. And it might not be the best first impression. So it's like kind of some of these little things that I think can make the process maybe more comfortable.
And Annette, if I could also plug email addresses, if it could be, because I've seen some very interesting email addresses.
Yes.
So what is your take on email addresses, how they should maybe look if somebody doesn't have one already?
You're exactly right, Amber. I've seen some that have been almost scary, honestly.
Yeah.
Like that, why would you choose that? So, well, first of all, I would say, especially when we're talking about maybe a more mature worker, so let's be a little current, and Gmail is kind of the preference. I mean, if you have AOL, Hotmail, or Yahoo.
Shoot, I have Yahoo, Annette.
Well,
Oh man, but I'm also looking for a job right now, so let me just put that. But that's that's actually an interesting take because I don't know if people realize that.
You know what? It's just one of those quick impressions,
Yeah.
and Amber, yours would be Amber Miller at Gmail, or maybe some numbers in between.
Yeah.
And I don't get paid by Google. I wish I did. If I said that 100 times, I'd be retired. But then also, like I love roller coasters, which maybe you're a fun person, but not a professional email. So I think also keeping it as your name consistent between your voicemail, your resume, your email, then I'm talking to Amber Miller. That's who I want to be talking to.
Correct. And then it looks like we have one more bullet point on items that we should put together. So it's a tracker of applications.
Right. So I guess this just goes along with if you're applying to multiple organizations and don't pick up the phone in Kohl's, but let's say you did, and you've applied to BMO Bank, and you start talking about BMO Bank, but it's actually somebody from Educators Credit Union calling you. They're probably going to think, well, BMO is on her brain, not us. So it's just whatever you use. I think some people are good with writing it down, having a little form of your own, an app, whatever you use. But then you're always on track to be as knowledgeable speaking to the right people.
Absolutely. And before we get to our next question, Annette, I just want to tell our viewers to also there's check out the AARP Work and Jobs page, which also gives you information and resources. I know Annette's going to give you some other resources on career changing and working at 50 plus. And the website is aarp.org/work /work. And even though AARP is geared a little bit more towards the 50 population, I was just on there today kind of looking around. There's still a lot of great information, even if you're under 50, that maybe you could, pass along to folks. So Annette, so our person now has created their resume, has a beautiful cover letter, has an email address that is not Yahoo, which I must have dated myself on that. Maybe has done some practice interviewing, just feels really good. So now that they have all their information ready, so where do they look, and how does social media play a role in that?
So I picked out just a few job engines, job boards, whatever you want to call them. And interestingly enough, at the bottom, we have AARP. And I'll actually, maybe Amber, I'll start with AARP to dovetail on what you were just saying, because so AARP is not a job board, but there's a ton of great information there, which of course I look at and utilize, because I pass that information along to job seekers. So don't dismiss other sites besides job boards. Indeed they say it's the largest. I guess that's true. It has, is it quantity or quality? That's debatable, but it is big. So maybe that's a good place to just, start poking around and seeing what's out there. I really like Glassdoor because I feel like you can get some impressions of a company by seeing what former or current employees have to say about the organization. Now, granted, a disgruntled former employee is not going to say good things, but you can also see things in there about wage and salary. And I feel like any insight, to me, it's all research up front, and the more information you can gain, the better. So I do like Glassdoor for that reason. I feel like Milwaukee Jobs is very easy to navigate, and it's now remote is coming of age. Let's say, obviously, in the past couple of years. So Milwaukee Jobs, yes, it kind of gears itself to this vicinity, but it's for people who are thinking more so in that direction. And that Flex Jobs is somewhat, it's not new, relatively new compared to some of the others, but when I look on there, it seems to me everything's pretty solid and vetted. That's how they describe it. So hybrid, working from home, flex. So that's probably, I think that site's going to get a lot of traffic because people are interested in that these days. Let's see, who else do we have? Snag, which is Snag a Job. That's a lot of just maybe quick hits, hourly things that people want. And then Ladders, some management roles for people. I would say maybe more mature workers might look at that one because that they've been in management. They want to continue in that arena, and they're looking for a certain threshold of income, which they'd probably find on the Ladders. And then LinkedIn. So I'll be the first to say I'm not a LinkedIn expert at all. Most of the people who are on LinkedIn, I think they say I'm on LinkedIn, but I never use it. And they only use it once they start looking for a job. And by far, it is the professional networking site. And if for no other reason for people to be on it, again, a more mature worker in particular, it shows that you're current.
Correct. And how about the social media aspect?
Well, that's a little challenging sometimes for people of any age. However, I think it's clear to say that the trend is that those sites certainly are being used to find people. I mean, how awesome would it be? You work on your LinkedIn profile and somebody finds you instead of you having to go out and find them. That's kind of a dream, right? So another irony with social media today is that if you're not on it, some, it depends on the industry, but some will think like you don't exist.
Correct. And Annette, it looks like we have two questions. We'll bring up Jim's first. So what is the best practice for following up with a potential employer after submitting a resume or have an initial interview? Is it better to wait to be contacted or reach out to them via phone, email, text, etc.? And then if we could just bring up our liens too, because this actually kind of goes, and our written thank you cards still a good idea, or like emails, if it kind of coincides
Okay.
together.
Well, first of all, I think it's always should be for every job seeker to follow up. Um, I kind of hear, let's say the rule of thumb is maybe about a week, depending on if you're not dealing with a holiday or that, um, week and a half. But yes, I mean, to follow up in whatever manner you can. I mean, they may have given you instructions of how you can follow up. If they didn't, you probably have an email. It's completely appropriate to follow up, and it shows that you're interested. Now, I wouldn't, some people take a tendency like, I'm going to call every day. Probably not a good idea. That gets into that little stalking category. And as far as a thank you, absolutely. Now, the funny thing is, because we're not in our offices as much, a written thank you note goes a long way because they're so rare. It's almost like finding a message in a bottle. It's like, whoa, like the mail still exists. But since that person might now not get a written thank you note,
Yep.
for sure, email. And short and sweet, but I would tell any job seeker or whatever job that absolutely you should follow up and absolutely you should send a thank you.
And thank you so much, Jim and Arlene, for your questions. Annette, what if someone is trying to make a career transition? So, are there other tools to help them do so?
Well, the one that I pulled up that I thought was pretty universal for anybody, whether you're in Milwaukee area or not, is this ONET online, which the funny thing I always get a kick out of, it looks like 1 ton line
Yep,
also.
it
So
does.
however you want to type it out. But so this is the U.S. Department of Labor, and it's a great site for people who are thinking about making any transition. You could kind of get lost in it because it's deep, but a ton of great information, career clusters, trends, um, um, transferable skills. Like there's a whole section which is really neat where you could put in like a job title of what you had, and it shows all the skills that you most likely used. And then you could, what are other skills that you have that are considered transferable that could go work with another type of industry. Um, Salaries, states, counties. It's fascinating. I mean, I think there's so much there. And coincidentally, I was on a call yesterday, a webinar with Goodwills across
Mhm.
the country, and we also have a tool at our disposal if you chat with us about with little different components and modules that can help maybe on a different scale for career transition and things like that. So there's a lot. Again, I guess I always feel that the more you can investigate in advance, especially if you're making a career transition, the better prepared you'll be. Because then you come to the table much more knowledgeable than just presuming you can make this transition.
Absolutely. And I want to plug, because my producer Darren is telling me to plug this, and it was talked about last week, which is the AARP Skill Builders. And what this does is help you gain in-demand skills that could give you an edge in today's competitive job market. And right now you could choose a free course. And I was on there too, because I don't know everything about Microsoft Word by all means. So you could get a free course to get you started and get special discounts on other courses. So you can go to aarp.org/work skills. And Annette, everything you guys do is fabulous, but I know the Goodwill Workforce Connection Centers, of course, they sound like a great resource. And I still don't know if people realize maybe what everything that you guys do, but how would job seekers access those? I know you talked a little bit about Milwaukee, but if
Mhm.
somebody's outside the Milwaukee area also.
Yeah, if you're outside of the Milwaukee area, the best way would be to go to goodwill.org.
Okay.
And there's a tab right at the top that says Help for Job Seekers. I think it says Find a Career Center. So just so you know, so I can brag about Goodwill SEW, we're the largest Goodwill in the country.
Oh,
Because
wow.
they're all independent Goodwills across the country. So I actually Goodwill SEW, which / Metro Chicago. So we do
Okay.
have 3 locations, Workforce Connection Centers and Talent Bridge, in the Chicago area. So for here locally, they can, and I'm sorry I don't have the phone numbers there, but obviously I can get those to you, or you can contact me. But I mean, you don't need an appointment. We're open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. We offer our services remotely. We can do that too. So I would just encourage anyone to investigate, again, places where you can go to get some help, just because I think it's more enjoyable to do it that way than try to tackle it all on your own.
And did we have some additional slides? I'm sorry. It shows on
I
my, no,
I I,
nope,
I
I think, okay, thank you. Nope, I see it. I apologize about that. Annette, we have about a minute left. Any final words, suggestions, words to empower people about if they are just kind of lost? I think the tips and tricks you gave was great, but just kind of next steps.
Well, again, I guess, and I'll address this to, let's say, again, I love to refer to them as the more mature jobs
Mhm.
worker, but just to be really excited and proud of all the accomplishments you have. Yes, there are stereotypes and biases, and those exist in every demographic and everything, unfortunately. But because the market has changed so much, I think people who have those skills should be find ways to accentuate the positive, of which there are many aspects, and embrace this as just an exciting new challenge. I think everyone in that age demographic, in my opinion, is very marketable, with maybe a few little tweaks, but just I would say try to always foster that approach versus I don't want to do an online application. That's
Correct.
probably not a good thought process. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of skill and talent there, and just find someone that can help you. You use the tools on Amber on the AARP
Mhm.
website are fabulous,
Okay.
and there's just use the tools that you have to make the best of how valuable you can be.
Well, Annette, it's always a joy. I've worked with you for many years, and just all the goodness that Goodwill does, and that you and the department does here in Milwaukee. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being on today's show.
Thank you. So happy to get the invitation, Amber,
Right.
and we'll do more together as time goes
Absolutely.
along.
Thank you, Annette. And if we always like to plug some upcoming virtual events that you can register for. So we have a couple, actually tonight. So Explore Lecture Tech, which is mindfulness apps for your phone. There's also movies for grown-ups. There you should still be able to register, but it's for Being the Ricardos, which once again you can watch in the comfort of your own home. There's also another movie at 3 p.m. today, which is movies for grown-ups, King Richard. February 3rd, there is some fun AARP virtual trivia. And then February 7th, culinary class, gourmet charcuterie boards, which that also sounds fun. So if you're interested in registering for any of those, you could go to the website or call the phone number below. Please remember the next Small Dollar Big Impact grant is coming up on February 15th. This is a monthly grant that a nonprofit, municipality, or similar can apply for. So it's up to $1,000 for really fun, creative, out-of-the-box ideas for your community. You can find all information, including the application and form and prior winners, at aarp.org/WI, and then SDBI for Small Dollar Big Impact. And for next week's show, which is February 3rd, it is Transit Equity Day. So we're going to have some really great guests talking about that and what that means, because that might be the first time you heard of it. So we'd love for you to join us back here next Thursday, February 3rd at noon. It could be here on our Facebook.com page, or we'd love for you to head over to our YouTube page and subscribe, or it's similar to following. So thank you again so much. Feel free to share this video on your social media, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And until then, be safe. Thank you.